Welcome back to our bi-weekly episode of Teenage Translation. We're filming this March 4th, 2013. I'm Audrey Lee.
And I'm Erin McClory. We've had a few people ask us why we decided to call the show Teenage Translation. This show is all about what's happening in the lives of teenagers in the Upper Valley, and we're translating that to you at home. Today's show is all about ice hockey. So Audrey, I hear that you actually play ice hockey for Woodstock.
Yeah, I do. In fact, our team won the state championship. It was really great. So I interviewed a few of our teammates about, what it was like to win the state championship, and this is what they said.
It was really important for us to win the championship because our team was really new and we just started. But over the season, we've really begun to improve, and it was really fun having them all together.
I've been playing, this is my first year playing hockey, actual hockey. I'm not playing on console, but with my friends. But yeah, it's my first time playing on actual team.
It was fun to win the championships because I have been playing hockey for a very long time and have never won the championships or made it to the finals.
This is my first year playing hockey.
It was really fun to win the championships because I've never skated before, and it was really fun to be on a team with each of us.
Well, I've been playing hockey for 2 years. This is my third year.
I started playing hockey because my brother started playing hockey when he was around 8, and then my other brother started playing hockey, so my whole entire family was playing hockey at the time, and my parents just decided to start me when I was young, and I've been playing ever since.
When I decided to start playing hockey, my parents and a friend's parents decided that they thought it would be cool if we played hockey. And they were just like, okay, here, you guys go play hockey. So,
What inspired me to play hockey was my mother. He started at a young age, and my parents just wanted me to play hockey, so yeah.
well, what inspired me to play hockey was my cousin Trevor. He was pretty much the person that I looked up to, and that, yeah. Rolling.
Action! Well, I have been playing hockey for 2 years, and actually some of the players on the team. What? What? No, I'm sorry. Sam is cracking up. Hi, Mom!
Rolling.
Action. Stop! Action. Oh, Lauren.
Rolling.
No.
Rolling.
Okay. No. Forget it. Who do you have it on right now? It's fine. You can.
So now that we've heard from some of your teammates, how did you feel about winning the championship?
It was an amazing experience because, we're a really new team and we just came so far. And, the season's over now. I'm really going to miss it.
Well, congratulations. That's really cool.
Thank you.
The Lebanon girls ice hockey team is actually starting their playoffs right now, and they finished their regular season 13-3-2. The boys ice hockey team just finished up their regular season and won't be going to playoffs, and they finished their season 3 and 15. Although they didn't have the best season according to their stats, I sat down to talk to them and the girls' ice hockey captains as well about how they felt about their seasons and what they plan to do next year. Take a look. I'm here with Donica Coyle and Ryan White, captains of the Lebanon varsity ice hockey team this year. So you guys just finished your regular season and you finished 3 and 15. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's start by talking a little bit about how you guys got involved in hockey. When did you start playing?
Well, I started very, very young. As soon as I was really walking, we started learn to skate. And hockey, you start off learning to skate, learn to play, and then you go into sort of the Valley Mites on the different leagues where you have you're really playing hockey. So playing started later, but I started skating probably 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, I started a lot later than Donica. I played basketball up until 3rd grade, and then Christina Drake, who you'll talk to in a minute, we grew up together, and we'd always be in her basement playing street hockey down there, and she finally convinced me to try hockey, and so I started learning to play in 3rd grade, so I was a little older than all the other kids, but then I went right into organized hockey, and been playing organized hockey since 4th grade, and I skipped all like the learn to skate and stuff he was talking about. But
So Chrissy got you involved in hockey. Who started with you, like in your family?
Yeah, I guess it's not really a family thing. My mom ran track. My dad didn't really do anything. He's fresh from Ireland, they played a little soccer and that's about it. But my grandfather, he came over from Ireland and he first saw the sport here, and he really enjoyed watching the Bruins play. And so my mom thought it was just like a cool idea to get me and my brother just trying to learn how to like skate and how to play. And we picked it up. We loved it. It was a lot of fun. And I remember at one point during Valley Mites when I was still really young, I was on the Devils team. They named it after NHL teams. So the Devils became my favorite team in the NHL too, so I'd always be watching them. And that's how like a lot of people in school came to like know a few like hockey teams just from like Valley Mites, from like us playing at youth leagues and getting interested in like the larger sport.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your season. Just by looking at the numbers, it seems like you guys had a tough season, but when you look closer, you can see that you guys really fought hard for every game. You had a lot of close games, lost 3 overtime games in a row and a 4th overtime game. What did that do to your team morale?
well, we had a very young team this year. We had 10 freshmen, 6 sophomores, only 2 juniors and 3 seniors. So it was a little difficult keeping all the younger kids really wanting to come back every day, even though we weren't winning. And some games, like Merrimack, who is playing the state final game on Saturday, is just head and shoulders above everyone else. And there were some games like that that weren't close. But we really did fight hard for every game, so we just tried to tell the younger kids that, we might not be winning all these games, but, the 3 overtime games in a row, and, that, at the end of the day, that's pretty demoralizing. But if you think about it, 3 overtime games, and they were all against good teams that finished in the top, towards the top of the division. And the earliest one was a team that's state finalist year after year. And so, it was tough keeping all the younger kids in it, but I think we did have a good compete level this year.
Yeah, tough schedule.
Yeah. First week of the first couple games of the season, we played the top 4 teams, and we were the only team to do that. So we were 1-4, 1-5 to start the season, and we were the only team who played all the best teams. So we were kind of looking forward to the rest of it.
Yeah, and there was a point where we looked at like the rest of our schedule. We just played 4 of the top teams, came out of it with a win and quite a few losses, but we were looking at like the next chunk of our season, and we were seeing that there were some very winnable games. We knew we had to go out there, we knew we had to battle for every one of those games, because you never know how many points is going to make a difference between not making playoffs, just making playoffs. And I feel like every time we were really getting something going as a team, we were putting stuff together, we were doing things right, we'd have one of these games where everything's going right, there's a couple little breakdowns, and that OT goal goes in against us instead of for us. And like as soon as we're starting to build that momentum, it would just sort of like turn around, and we'd be like sort of more crushed, but knowing that we had to just like keep picking ourselves up and keep going at it because we were right there. We were that close, but sometimes it doesn't go your way.
In every overtime game, I mean, the first overtime game, we only lasted a couple minutes into it.
How
And
long was
then
overtime?
Overtime was 5
Yeah,
5 or 8 minutes, I can't remember. And then the next overtime game, we got a little further. In each overtime game, we kept getting a little further and further into it without making that breakdown, but it would just be one little breakdown, and that would cost us the game. And we had so many games where we would control a lot of the game, or it would be a very close game, and then a lot of it because we were so young, and we had to put our third line out there, which was 3 freshmen. They just didn't have the experience and just the experience to go out there and to compete against other teams' top lines that are all juniors and seniors. And so we'd have a couple lapses then, or even our top lines would be out, and we'd just have a quick little 30-second lapse, and we'd end up letting up a goal or two. And there were times where we would let up 2 goals in the span of a minute and a half. And there's just little lapses like that that killed us throughout the season.
I think it's really impressive that you guys could just keep up the team spirit through that, though. And it seems like you guys were close not only when you were playing, but when you guys were, bus rides and hanging out after games.
Yeah.
I heard a little bit about something called Camp P moments. What is that?
So Camp P moments started, we had this kid on our team, Cam Perrin, who, this kid is just, he works his rear end off every day. He didn't get a ton of playing time at the beginning of the season, but he kept working, got to it. But he just was just the immature, typical immature freshman, in just the sense that he just didn't know when to maybe not say something or the right thing to say. And he would just say these things sometimes that would be so funny, and we just started calling them. We didn't know what to call them. So every time, even if it wasn't Cam, it was me or Donica even, we would call it a Camp P moment because they were so funny. Like some of them were just so funny. Like one time we're on the way back from Spalding and we were trying to pick up the Bruins game on the radio, and it was nothing but static. So we yelled up to Cam, who was sitting next to the bus or behind the bus driver. We yelled up, "Cam, can you have him turn the radio down?" Next thing we know, the volume turns up even higher, and it's nothing but static in our ears. So like that's a Camp P moment. It's just so funny. And this kid, he's a really good, like I said, works his rear end off, and just sometimes he just have just airheaded moments. And it was fun.
Yeah, there was one that I remember. We were sitting in the locker room, came out of the second period. It was a close game. And I was trying to get everyone picked up to go out there and take the ice for the third period with a lot of energy. And we had one of those morale events the next day. We were going to watch the Dartmouth game, and we weren't going to be working or anything. We were just going to go watch them play. They had back-to-back games. It was going to be fun. And so I'm telling the team, we got tomorrow off. You're not going to be skating anywhere. Leave it all on the ice, basically. And he turns to me and he says, "But we have the Dartmouth game tomorrow."
Yeah.
Yeah, are you going to be skating at the Dartmouth game, Cam?
Yeah, that was one of those things. It was, we had finally got the team pumped up. Everyone was ready to go. We're doing the stupid, we're all pushing each other and yelling, and we're ready to go. And then Donica says that, and Cam, and all of a sudden everyone just lost their focus. And everyone starts laughing hysterically, like just things like that made the season a lot more fun. And at the time it was a little annoying because, being a senior and it being the last year, and you want to win as much as possible, and you know how to stay focused, but having 16 underclassmen who don't always know how to stay focused and stuff like that would happen, and it was a little frustrating, but at the end of the day you can only laugh about it because it did bring our team a lot closer, and we all had a blast. So
you talked a little bit about just now, between periods, what you say to each other, but for most sports you have halftime, you go in, the coach talks to you about what you need to improve on. You guys have 3 periods and you have 2 breaks in between, and they're fairly long while the Zamboni goes out. What do you do during that time?
Well, I think the primary thing that I do is rest. Because you're coming off, we took a lot of ice time this year, and every shift you want to go out and you want to give it your all, and that's why the shifts end up being so short. So as soon as you get back in the locker room, first thing I do, throw off the helmet, throw off the gloves, even take out the elbow pads, grab a water bottle, and just sit for a minute. Okay, then our coaches, they give us that minute, and then they'll come in, and they'll give us either the fire and brimstone speech that we maybe have earned, or they'll go through sort of what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. They'll tell us the things that we can change, like technically in our systems on the ice. So change up the type of breakout that we're doing to get out of the zone or something like that. And then they, again, will leave while the Zamboni is doing the ice, and we'll have a moment where it's just us kids. We can talk to each other about things that happened in that last period, things we want to change with our line mates. And then right before we go out again, we have, I think usually Ryan would give us a little, another talk to get us all pumped up again, and then we'd all come in, cheer, and then go out and take the ice.
So you talked a little bit about why you guys sub so often. I think that's one of the biggest mysteries about hockey for people who don't play. The other part about that is, how do you know when to sub? I mean, from the stands, you don't hear people yelling. You don't. Most games, they stop the game or you yell and the other person goes out. But with hockey, you can't tell.
Yeah, a lot of it is up to you as a player. The coaches always say 30, 45-second shifts at 45 at the most. Sometimes you get cut out there for a minute or maybe more than a minute if you can't get the puck out of your zone. And it's just because when you go out there, especially at the high school level, you are expected to move your feet. Every loose puck you need to be yours. So you're moving your feet, you're battling hard. So at the end of 30 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but believe me, when you're out there in the thick of things and all of a sudden 30 seconds goes by and you realize you're gassed, and just looking back at the bench, that seems like it's a mile away, even though it's maybe only be 60 feet.
Yeah,
and the coaches, it is a little difficult trying to hear the coaches sometimes. Like as fans, I know I've been in the student section before for games, and it does get pretty loud in there, but that's part of the situational awareness in the game that you have to develop as a player. Is you have to not only know where you need to be on the ice, but you need to be able to listen to your coach. And if he's whistling, and I mean, we were pretty good at not having to or have our coaches yell at us to change. And plus, when our coach would yell at us to change, everyone else on the bench would start saying, yeah, come on, like slapping their sticks on the bench and making a lot of noise. And usually, we were smart enough this year, even though we were so young, we knew when to change. And it does seem like a really short shift when you get out there, and sometimes it is hard to get a nice flow going if you're going to be out there for 30 seconds, then you're off for another minute and a half while a couple of the lines go, or maybe only another 30 seconds. It is hard to get a flow, but you have to take those breaks or you're going to die.
So you guys sub in lines. So
Yes.
5 on the ice plus the goalie. How many different lines do you have?
Well, first they're broken up in, we have offense and we have defense. And the 3 forwards would be one line together, and then there'd be a pair of defensemen behind them. So for forwards, we had 3 lines of forwards that we'd roll through plus an odd man. And so we would just, one line would come out, the other 3 forwards would come in, and then the defense would sub sort of independently of the forwards. Of course, you don't want any time to have everyone subbing at the same time, because you want someone on the ice to sort of be in control of the game. But there are situations where that's okay. And for defense, I think we had 3 D pairs too.
We had 3 D pairs, and the third one was our youngest D pair, and they would switch on and off. Like it was one sophomore, and then there were 2 freshmen who would switch on and off with him. And they went in, kind of like our third line would go in our coach might say, okay, blue and white lines were our top 2 lines. So we said, okay, blue, white would go, and then he'd say red was our third line. So he'd say, okay, now red go out. And then they do the same thing with the D pair. The top 2 pairs usually go, and then the third one would rotate in. And a lot of it too is matchups. I mean, sometimes you want your second line going out against the other team's top line. That way, your first line has a better chance of scoring. They're going out against hopefully a less skilled line, unless you're playing a really deep team. And then you train your second line during practice to just play a lot of defense, like get the puck over the center line and dump it in, keep the puck deep in the zone. And a lot of times the second line's responsibility, and This year it happened to be our third line. But you have one line whose responsibility is to keep the puck out of your defensive zone, keep the other team from scoring. And the last thing you really think of when you're on the ice, unless you have a clear chance, is scoring. You just keep the other team from scoring and give your other two lines a break, and then get them out there so they can create their own scoring chances. And
So you're constantly playing with the same people. I mean, do you think that helps you because you develop, skills with the same people? You know where people are. You get a better sense of how they are as players.
Yeah, you definitely, when you're on the ice, you get chemistry with your line mates. You can figure out how they play, what sort of player that they are. Sometimes, like one of my line mates, Mike Servant, he's just a really hardworking, sort of tough guy. He's really good in the corners. He's really good at getting in front of the net, making the goalie unable to see the puck, and trying to get the tips and stuff. So he's a really sort of gritty, tough player, and he's a bigger guy. So then you can sort of play off of that. You know that you can trust him to win a battle in the corner and come out with the puck. So you can position yourself in a place so that when he comes out, which he hopefully does, you can maybe get a scoring chance. And I can trust whoever's on the other side. A lot of the time it was Brendan Kelly. He's sort of a person who has the puck skills where you can take the puck and really get it to the other end of the ice, just stick handling. So you can trust him to work it through the neutral zone a lot of the time and then react to that and sort of where you want to be. Maybe I'm following him up in case he gets bumped and he loses the puck or something. So I guess it's who you play with is a lot of it. Like last year, I know that we had a lot of seniors and they'd all been playing with each other for forever. So it was really cool to watch them sort of when they played on a line together, because they did just have that connection that sometimes feels like it's missing,
Yeah, and last year we did have, at first we had, our lines were a little more mixed up. We had a junior and two seniors, and then a junior, a freshman, and a senior on one line. And then we ended up putting all three seniors because they had played together. So last year our line ended up being Donica, freshman at the time named Ryan Dameron, and I. And then this year, Ryan Dameron and I ended up being put on the same line, and Donica was put on the other line so we could spread out our offense. And just having that year playing with Dameron, I knew where he was going to be, and he's the type of player who doesn't necessarily love going into the corners. He will, and he does when he has to, but he's that player. He's got the most unbelievable shot I've ever seen. The quicker, like puck's on his stick, before you can blink, it's off his stick in the back of the net. The kid has just an unbelievable release, a great shot, and he knows where to be on the ice. So he's that player who we play a lot of our systems third man high to kind of help out our defense and keep the other team from getting a fast break on us. And a lot of times he would be that kid up high who just knows where to be, can get open, and has that shot that can just, it's incredible. And then I had another kid on my line this year. I think I had, it was Ryan Dameron and I for the whole year, but then I think we had four other people switch in with us, and we had Cam Broughton, who is an unbelievable face-off winner. And that kid, any face-off that kid knows how to win and does win. And he's quiet and he gets the job done, which is nice, because he's not like, you have some players like, everyone knows Alex Ovechkin. He's wicked flashy and he's good. And Cam is very good, but he's quiet about it. He doesn't go around and flaunt how good he is. And then, so you do, and when you practice, you always practice together. You have, each line has their own colored jersey, so you in practice and you get to know each other a lot. And just all the off-ice stuff we do in hockey, 10 times more than what we do for training during, like team building during any other sport that I've ever played. So you really get to know your line mates and really get that connection with them. And then on the ice, it's almost like that connection everyone always says Twins have, where you just know they're going to be as long as they're playing the systems. And sometimes you can get lucky enough to just not look, throw the puck there, and you know they're going to be there, and you just got to have faith in your line mates, really.
So you mentioned face-offs. It's obvious the game starts with a face-off, but after that, there seems to be a lot throughout the game. When do they happen?
Well, they happen after, say, the puck would hit the netting out of bounds, or there'd be a penalty, or the goalie would cover the puck. Any sort of stoppage of the puck or the play, whether it's to take someone off the ice in the penalty box, or because we've iced it, or because the goalie's covered it. There'll be a face-off, And I know this year was my first year really playing center for a full season, so I was sort of learning how to really take face-offs like that, and they can be critical moments. Defensively, you lose a face-off, it goes back to their D and they knock a slap shot in. You know, you sort of feel it. You're like, that was me. If I had won that face-off, that wouldn't have happened. So every single time there is a threat, there is a purpose to what you're doing, and it. I guess one of the biggest areas that they happen is, say you go offsides. So if your players are all outside, or one of your players is inside the blue line on the offensive zone, and the puck is outside, and then you carry it in, that's where they call offsides, and there's a face-off just outside the offensive zone. And that can be one of the trickier ones because you don't know whether you want to try to like knock it forward to just get it in the zone and then attack, or if you want to try to win it back and keep possession but risk getting pressed and turning it over behind you. Yeah. So it's sort of, it's just, they can be really critical moments basically.
Yeah, and I mean, like Donica was just said, you don't know, especially with a younger team this year. A lot of times we had no choice but to win the puck forward, especially at the beginning of the season when we have two freshmen who get constant shifts at defense who might be, they feel the pressure at the beginning of the season and they panic with the puck a little more. So sometimes you do have to win it forward and you have no choice. But then as the season wore on and they felt more comfortable and we felt more comfortable, then we could start winning it back, and we had a set play that our coach actually took from a Bruins game, and we had all seen the play during the game, and he was telling us this set play. It was like right before one of our last games, and we were all picking on him. We said, "Hey, does Coach Julian know you stole his play from him?" And we're all giving him crap about that. So face-offs can be a huge part of the game, and defensive zone face-offs. I mean, I remember a game last year against Dover. Coach had just moved me to center. I've been a wing my whole life. He just moved me to center, and it was like right before that game. And he said, "Hey, go out, take this face-off." And I took the face-off in overtime and didn't tie the kid up. He ended up getting past me and scored in Dover. I mean, they're a good team. I think they beat us in overtime pretty much every year we've played them. But I mean, then you, like Donica said, you really feel like, all right, that was me. And that was senior night last year too. So I felt like I had just lost the game for all those seniors, and I got back in the locker room and I just felt terrible. I didn't even want to get undressed at first. Like, I just sat down. I couldn't believe it. It's like I just lost the game, but I mean, I didn't. I didn't help, but there were 1,000 things we could have done before that to win the game. And it's a big responsibility playing center, and that's why Donica actually had to play it this year, and I played it for a little bit this year because we didn't have any older centers, and we wanted the younger kids to get experience and before we could trust them, because center is an important position, and it can win and lose. Faceoffs can win or lose games, and the center can win or lose a game for you. So,
from a fan perspective, you guys are gonna laugh, but when I first saw face-off, it reminded me of like someone giving a dog a treat. Like the ref is like holding the puck and they're like waiting to throw it, and they always like turn around to make sure like everyone's like behind. I don't know where they have to be, but to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. They like start to do it, and then they stop, turn around. It's like making the dog sit. It's like making sure everyone's in the right place. Like that's what it reminded me of.
It does feel like that sometimes, especially you get those pesky referees who, if you know the hairs on your skate laces are sticking out past the circle, they say, "Get back." I mean, there are refs like that, and that's what you're talking about. It is like giving a dog a treat. They sit there and just taunt you with it and taunt you with it. And if you watch centers, they sit there and stare. They're like a dog staring at the treat. They just sit there and stare at the puck. And I mean, Chrissy's a very good center, and she'll tell you you got to focus on the puck. You can't worry about anything else. And when you like, some of the best pictures actually action shots that come from hockey are the centers staring at the puck, waiting for the ref to drop it, and just the look in their eyes, if they're really into the game, is just like, it's scary.
So one thing, when I told people that I was interviewing you guys, people asked me to ask you some questions, and one thing they wanted to hear about was Donica's best celebration in his high school career. So let's hear about that.
All right, well,
Westford.
Well, I guess my best celebration was in a scrimmage last year at the preseason. It was our first game, and we had been battling. Every year we play this team, Westford Academy from Massachusetts, and they're a top team in Massachusetts, D1, you know. So they're really talented, and they come up here as sort of like part of their tryouts, a bunch of guys still making final cuts, and they just have a good time beating on us a bit. So we've been holding our own the first period. There's a little back and forth, but mostly in our end. And then I got like a quick rush, scored on a slap shot, and just went nuts. And it became my go-to celly. I wasn't a big goal scorer before then, but after that point, I realized that like I just dropped to a knee after I saw the puck go into a net, held my stick up in front of me, pulled an arrow from my quiver, and just fired it off into the fan section, and jumped up into the like my teammates were coming over to sort of like hug me after I scored. Sort of like we huddle up afterwards. So I fired it off and then jumped up into the arms of my teammates. It was like sort of my go-to thing now, the bow and arrow.
And then, so there are great cellies like that. That goes down in it's legend. And then there are the terrible cellies, and we call hockey players. It's part of we call them cellies. We're too lazy to say celebrations, I guess. We're cool.
Yeah.
And one of the worst cellies last year was our captain, Jake Davis, who was he was a great guy to play with. I honestly, I have nothing but thanks for that kid. He got me playing time my freshman year. He was like a third coach out there, and he really helped me and help me adjust to the systems. I've ended up playing with him for 3 years almost, and 2.5 years. And he scored just the worst goal, his garbage goal. And we call it the Davy Gravy now. He let out a yelp and brought his right knee and his right elbow and left knee together. And we got the video of it and put it on YouTube and said, best celly ever. And the comments on it just tore him apart. He just got so much hate from that. So we called it the Davy Gravy celly. And in practice, every once in a while, we'd do it just to pick on him. We'd call it the Davy and the Gravy. And we picked on him for that. So if you're good at cellying like Donica is, then it's great. If you're terrible at it like Jake Davis, then
sounds like the cellies are almost more important than how cool the goal looks.
Well, not more cool, but they definitely help.
Oh yeah, it helps. It helps. You know, it's fun. Like sometimes you score, you're right near the student section, and being able to jump into the glass. Our coach doesn't like us cellying, but you can't help it sometimes. And then jumping into the glass right in front of the student section after you score a big goal is just the most fun. Like everyone's on their feet. Parents and students are right next to each other. Students are going crazy. There are people jumping down to the glass, pounding on the glass, and you're right there. And so sometimes celebrating is almost the best part of the goal, because you just get such a good feeling when you score a goal that like I said, Gary doesn't like us doing it, but we can't help it.
Yeah, there's no better way to sort of enjoy the adrenaline rush that follows scoring a goal than to just drop down and have an awesome celly or jump into the fan section. But then sort of after it clears up, after you're back in it ready to go, obviously you're still on that high, but you're not completely overwhelmed by it. And you go down the line and you high five everyone on the team, everyone who's been playing, everyone who's been on the bench, and you go back and you high five your goalie, and that's just because when you score, it's important to know, like, it's not you. It's nothing one person did that went out and scored that goal. It's everyone on the ice, everyone on the team that made it possible. We wouldn't be playing if we didn't have each other. So after you score, you got to go down. You got to thank everyone for the opportunity to score like that.
And sometimes a celebration is almost a player's trademark. Like there was a great, I don't want to get this wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Jaromir Jagr who would score, and then after every goal has enough composure, and this guy's a goal scorer, has enough composure to take his glove off and salute. And every single goal he does, and that became his trademark over the years after every goal. And then last year during the Winter Classic, Rangers, Flyers, I can't remember. Jagr was on the Flyers last year, so there's a guy in the Rangers who wasn't a goal scorer, scored, kind of taunted Jagr a little bit and took his glove off and saluted the guy. And one of the Rangers' big guys came over and tried to start a fight because he was, that's his trademark. You can't do that. So sometimes a celly can. It's good to get your team into it, and everyone you do your celly, and all 4 other guys on the ice come over, or 3 if it's shorthanded, come over, and you all hug each other and have a blast, and then going over to your bench, like Donica said. I mean, it wouldn't have been possible. Maybe there's somebody who's on the bench now who your goal wouldn't have been possible, even a coach. Your goal wouldn't have been possible for something that maybe they didn't do or did or didn't do 5 minutes beforehand. So you really do have to include everyone.
So let's wrap up by talking about what you guys plan to do next year. I mean, I'm sure you guys plan on continuing to play hockey throughout the rest of your lives.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, we know it's never going to be the same as it was like this year, because like you hear it growing up, like every year you play. When we came into high school, they were saying these 4 years go fast. You got to enjoy it while you're here. And yeah, you listen to them, you respect them, but like you don't really understand it until you've been through it. So now that we're those guys, those old guys saying, oh, cherish your moments while you're here, those 4 years go quick. They do go really quick. And so to an extent, I'm sure I'll be playing hockey for the rest of my life in men's leagues or pickup or something like that. But I'm not going to be playing in college unless I end up playing on a club team. So really, this was it. This was the big rush. This was the big year, and it was a blast. And I'm glad I got to experience all of it.
Yeah, I'm same as Donica. I mean, this is it for me until beer leagues when I'm older. But yeah, next year hopefully going down to Daytona Beach and going to Embry-Riddle, and they have a good club hockey team, and hopefully play club hockey. Maybe not. We'll see. Maybe play in a beer league. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what I do. We'll see.
Yeah, see how it goes. Well, thank you for answering all the questions that everyone wants to know about hockey.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, welcome. No problem.
I'm here with Chrissy Drake and Amelia Gage, captains of this year's Girls Varsity ice hockey team, both of which have reached 100 career points. So not only have you both reached 100 career points, but Chrissy, you've now broken the school record for career points.
Yep.
So do you know what the new school record is?
I believe it's 142. It's 141 or 142, something like that.
So do you guys want to talk about your 100th point, how that felt, what it was?
Yeah, sure. So I started this season off with 87 points, and so I only needed 13. And I knew I was going to get it, but I didn't really know when. And I got it on the third game of the season, which is like pretty good. I just kind of went off at the beginning of the year with points, and I got it against Souhegan, our first time we played them, and it was in the first period, and I really wanted it to be on a goal, but it was on an assist front, and I passed it to Amelia, and she scored, and so it was pretty, like, I don't think everyone really knew because it was on an assist, but it was a pretty good feeling. I'll probably never forget it.
Mine was a little different. I came into the season with 60 points, so it was going to be kind of a reach if I was even going to get it. So I tried not to really think about it until I was really close, and then I got to like 90 or like 85, and I was like, okay, this might happen. And it was like always a joke with my dad, like, because he's my coach, and so he was like, if you really try hard, you might get it. And then when I got to 98, we went into my senior night game, and that's when Chrissy was 5 points away from the career, so we were like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could both get in the same night, and then she got it, and then I didn't, and then we waited to the next game, and then I still didn't get it, and I was 1 point away, and it was like the hardest point I could ever get, and then I finally got it in our last game of the season on a goal, and I was just so relieved that it was like finally over.
So you guys are kind of polar opposites for that. I mean, Chrissy, you came in knowing, like, I'm going to get it, but I don't know when. And Amelia, you were a little nervous about maybe not being able to get it.
Yeah.
So your record-breaking goal was in overtime on your senior night.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Well, actually, going into the game, I thought I only needed 4 points. So when I had got my fourth goal of that game, I was, like, celebrating like I beat the record, and I like got back to the bench, and they're like, no, you need one more, and I was like, great, I'm never gonna get it. And then I hate overtime. Like, it's probably the thing I hate the most in sports, and so I always try and get like overtime over with at the beginning of it. And I think it was like my second or third shift, I just went out and I just came out from behind the net and shot it and it went in and I just went crazy. And I don't know, it was the best feeling in the world.
So you guys had a really young team, just like the boys talked about. You had 2 seniors, both of you, 2 juniors, and a lot of sophomores. I mean, do you think that hurt you in playoffs? I know you guys recently just lost to Oyster River in the semifinals. I mean, it was their second playoff as sophomores and first for freshmen. How do you think that affected you?
That definitely affected us for experience-wise. Like, a lot of them had never really been to like a semifinal game before, so they didn't really realize this, like, the gravity of the situation. But also, I think that it kind of helped because then they didn't really understand, so they didn't really need to get worked up about it, like, because they didn't need to worry about it being like their last game or like because they had 2 more seasons. So it had its pros and its cons, but it was fun.
Yeah.
So most of the rules for boys and girls ice hockey are the same, but there are some differences. And can you talk about what those differences are?
Really the only difference is we're not allowed to check and the boys are. I think that's pretty much the only difference.
Yeah.
Do you check and you get a penalty for it? I mean, have you ever done it?
I actually have not gotten 1 penalty my whole career.
Wow.
But some players on our team.
I have.
How many?
I don't know. But I used to get more than I did this year just because in the past I never really was that, like, I didn't really need to be out there to, like, keep the game going. But I feel like this year I was more of an impact player, so I couldn't really spend time in the box. So I kind of was a little bit more careful.
So there's 2-minute penalties, 10-minute penalties, 5-minute penalties?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
So what's the longest that you've gotten? Just 2?
Just 2.
Just 2.
I'm not that bad.
I mean, have you ever been in a game where there's something more than 2 minutes?
I don't think in high school we've ever.
I don't think in girls hockey. I've seen it in boys hockey, but.
So obviously your goals and assists for your 100th points were pretty memorable, but are there any other goals or assists that were the most memorable for you throughout high school?
Probably one of my favorites was my junior year when we were playing Concord at
gonna say that
Concord.
one.
It was overtime with Concord, and Kira Herbert, who was on our line last year, it was me and her on a 2-on-1, and she passed it to me, and I like geeked the goalie and shot it in, and we won in overtime. And it was a pretty big win, so that's probably one of my favorite goals.
One of the things I've always wondered about ice hockey for girls especially is helmets and your hair. Is it really hard to keep all of your hair under your helmet, or is it annoying?
Well, usually we wear pre-wrap underneath, so
Because like a headband.
yeah. So
Keeps it back.
the only time it really ever is like if you don't and your bangs get in your eyes, but other than that.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any pre-game rituals, either you individually or as a team?
I don't really know.
We like to listen to Maroon 5.
Yeah.
She Will Be Loved. That was our
True. That was our
pre-game
song.
song.
And
We would
cinema.
just belt it out. Sometimes the coaches would come in right in the middle of the chorus and be a little awkward. But for the most of the time, we could get the whole song out before they came in.
So as someone who watches hockey games and doesn't play, I mean, it's obviously freezing in there. But for you guys, how hot, like, do you get really hot under all that equipment?
Yeah.
Doesn't take long, even though it's freezing in there?
Oh, yeah.
So do you guys have any foods that you, like, can't eat before a game, or, like, foods that you always, like, have to eat right before your game?
I don't know.
I've never really been one that like I can't eat stuff before games. I just eat
I don't
whatever.
really eat before games just because I don't want to, like, regret it later. if I start feeling sick. But I don't know. We always have oranges, like, between periods, like orange peel, like halves and like Gatorades. We always have that.
So we talked about penalties a little bit. So going along with penalties, there's power plays. And how does your strategy change during a power play?
We try to work the puck around the zone as much as possible, and we try and look for open people because usually they'll play like a box, which is like 2 people up top and 2 people on the bottom. So you just try like pass it around the box and just get open and like cut to the net and like just try and get open in front and take shots.
So I talked to a couple of your teammates and
boy.
got some inside information, and I was told to ask you why your guys' ankles bend so much.
Oh! Is that Sabrina
Yeah,
Hewitt?
Sabrina
Yeah. So let's hear a little bit about that story.
What?
I don't even know. Are they talking about our flop?
There must be.
Okay.
We're too
well,
good for them.
Yeah. One practice this year, Amelia and I decided to go with a flop, which is like instead of putting our socks over like our tongue, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's what
Instead of putting it over the tongue, you like you put the sock under the tongue, so it's like flopped over, and it worked for us.
Yeah, I mean, we did.
So
what
we just
did,
kept doing
so.
it, and they were jealous. Clearly,
So that's why that question came.
she's
So.
jealous.
Another
wishes she
thing
had
about,
swag.
I mean, you're talking about the way you wear your skates or your socks, but the way you wear your uniform, Amelia, gets a lot of attention during games. Whenever I go to a game, there's always someone who mentions it. The way your jersey is always behind your padding. Do you do that on purpose?
Oh yeah.
Why?
I just feel less restricted,
Yeah.
and I always try to start off the game with it like the right way, but then when I like start skating, it naturally rides up. And then, so it'll be like half and half, so then I just, I might as well just tuck it in all the way. And then I just feel better. I don't know.
You guys have a lot of equipment. Is there something that you're like most picky about? I mean, obviously you're picky about that, but are you most picky about your skates, your stick, your...
My pants. I can't have them strapped. Like there are straps on our pants, and then there are straps on our shells, and I can't buckle them.
Yeah, you gotta
And
find your happy medium.
Yeah.
Those pants.
My pants are always really baggy.
How many sticks do you guys own?
I have probably at my house like 20, but I only use 2.
Yeah. I have a lot of old sticks, but I only bring my 2.
Have you ever broken any during a game?
No. Just practice.
I don't think so.
You've broken them during practice?
Yeah, on a slap shot when I was in like 6th grade.
So let's talk about what you guys plan to do next year. Both going to college. Do either of you plan to play a sport?
I'm planning on playing field hockey at Wheaton College, and I would play hockey if I could, but it just isn't offered, and it's one of those things where you just can't like stop playing forever because it's just something you just fall in love with it no matter what. So I'm definitely not going to stop playing, but
I'm going to Nichols College, and I hopefully will be playing softball. I was thinking about playing hockey, but it just didn't really work out, and so hopefully I'll be playing on the softball team.
Well, good luck with softball and
Thanks.
field hockey.
thank you.
And thank you for answering the questions with us.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Wow, Aaron, that's really neat. So, when are the girls' playoffs?
The girls' playoffs already started, and you can always check the playoff schedule for any New Hampshire team on nhiaa.org.
Well, that concludes today's episode of Teenage Translation. We air every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, as well as any other times throughout the week. You can also find us on www.catv8.org. Our Vimeo channel is on that website as well.
Hope you enjoyed our show about ice hockey. See you in 2 weeks.
Whew.